Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate propaganda. CNN says that Colorado is having their worst fires in history and that the fire's growth is really unheard of for a fire in this part of the world. They also say that the fires come during what's been a record-breaking fire season across the western United States. Now let's look and see if any of these claims are true. This is the current fire map. You can see that there's 5 large fires north of Interstate 70 and west of Interstate 25. Most of this area is going to receive about a foot of snow over the weekend. The fires are burning in lodgepole pine forest, which hasn't burned for many decades. Now let's compare this to the Colorado fires from 1898. Idaho Springs, Colorado, September 29. Forest fires burning on the west side of the divide are beyond control and people are said to be fleeing for their lives. How many, if any, have perished cannot be known, as there's no way of getting direct information at this time. The Gore Range is on fire for more than 100 miles. The fires which are reported cover most of the northwestern part of the state and extend through the counties of Routt, Rio Blanco, Grand, and Larimer. In this map I show in red the counties which were burning up in the 1898 fire. It's pretty likely that Jackson County was burning as well. You can see this was a huge area which was burning in 1898. The 100-mile-long fire in the Gore Range would have extended the entire length of Routt County. The 1898 burn area was huge and was probably much more extensive than this year's fires. CNN says the fires come during what's been a record-breaking fire season across the western United States, which many state leaders say was fueled by climate change. It's unfortunate that state leaders don't know the history of their own state. This year isn't even close to being a record-breaking fire season. This is total burn acreage in the United States so far this year, and this graph shows the same metric back to the year 1926. This year has been a little bit above the recent average, but much lower than the burn acreage in the United States prior to 60 years ago. And according to the U.S. government, the burn acreage this year has been less than 10% of the average during the pre-industrial period from 1500 to 1800. It's been a bad fire season, but the claims of it being a record-breaking fire season do not have any basis in history or science. The largest fires in U.S. history occurred in the year 1910 along the Idaho-Montana border, when 3 million acres burned in a single fire, and most of it burned in about 6 hours. This article is from the U.S. Forest Service, the Great Fire of 1910. It was one of the largest forest fires in American history. No one knows for sure, but even now it's hard to put into words what it did. For 2 terrifying days and nights, August 20 and 21st, 1910, the fire raged across 3 million acres of virgin timberland in northern Idaho and western Montana. Most of the devastation occurred in a 6-hour period. On August 20th, 1910, hurricane-force winds swept through the region and fanned embers and low flames back to life across the northern Rockies. There was no stopping or containing the fire. One could only hope to avoid it. Trains raced to evacuate towns just ahead of the flames. Forester Edward Stahl recalled that flames hundreds of feet high were fanned by a tornadic wind so violent that the flames flattened out ahead, swooping to earth in great darting curves. Truly a veritable red demon from hell. This quote is from a 1911 publication. In 1910, probably the worst fire year in American history, a year when no rain fell for months, when the winds were veritable hurricanes, when fires sprang up everywhere and were numbered not by hundreds but by the thousands. CNN says that the fire's growth this year is really unheard of for a fire in this part of the world. But that's simply not true. The fires in 1910 were much larger and they grew much faster. Most of the 3 million acres which burned in 1910 occurred in a 6-hour period. This map shows the fires which burned in national forests in 1910, and they say at the bottom that if you included the fires which occurred on state, private, and other federal lands, the total burn acreage was probably triple that. The burn area in 1910 was much larger than this year's burn area, yet CNN claims that it's a record-breaking year in the western U.S. Now let's look at what's really going on in our national forests where I used to be a wilderness ranger. I took this picture 2 days ago in the Medicine Bow National Forest in Wyoming, which is one of the forests which has been hit hard by the fires. That's Kyrie looking at the blocked trail where there's all these dead trees lying down across the trail. There's been no fires there for decades, and there's a huge amount of fuel load on the ground. These forests are a catastrophe waiting to happen. As soon as someone lights a match, this is going to burn up. It's inevitable that this is going to happen, and as far as the trees are concerned, the only way which lodgepole pine seeds can germinate is in a large forest fire. These large fires are not destroying the forest, what they're doing is regenerating it. They're getting rid of the old, dead, sickly trees and making room for young, new, healthy trees. There were lots of massive forest fires during the 1890s. On June 25, 1890, it was reported that there was a massive forest fire burning up and down the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico. During the 1980s, I worked as a wilderness ranger in the burn area from this fire, and this is what it looks like now. This area north of Santa Fe has the tallest and most spectacular aspen groves in the world, and the reason they're there is because of the massive 1890 fire. Western forests need fire to regenerate, and they need fire to exist. These people in the press and in government who claim we're having record fires and they're caused by climate change don't know what they're talking about. They lack information about science and they lack information about history. Fortunately, Toto and Kyrie are here to set the record straight. You can visit them on the web at realclimatescience.com.